Let's start by displaying the list of products on the homepage. This is very easy. We already have the product service to get all the products from Firebase. In the last section, you also learned how to use Bootstrap cards to render layout like this. Now we should finally add this inside the grid so we can have 2 products per row. So let's get started. So back in VS Code, let's go to products.component.ts. Here we want to inject our product service. So product service of type product service. Now we don't want this on init interface here, so let's get rid of this noise. Now here I'm going to define a field which is an observable of products. So products observable. And then set this in our constructor. So this.product, we set it to product service .get all. Simple, right? Now let's go to our template and render all products using Bootstrap cards. So products.component.html. I'm going to delete all this markup. Now I'm going to go back to Bootstrap website and borrow some markup. So on the Bootstrap website, under components, card, we're going to borrow this markup that we saw in the last section. Just to save time, we don't want to type all of this by hand. So copy, paste it here. Now we want to apply the ng4 directive here. So ng4 let p of products observable, and we unwrap this using the async pipe. Now I'm going to change the width of each card to 15 to make it a little bit smaller. Now to render the image, we bind the source attribute to p.image URL. So we can either use property binding syntax like this without curly braces, or we can use interpolation like how I did it in a second ago. They're exactly the same. Now let's render the product title. So p.title, and finally the price. So I'm going to delete all this description and render p.price, apply the currency pipe, and set the type to US dollars, and render the $sign. And finally, I'm going to change the label of the button to add to cart. So this is our products component. Now we want to display this on the home page. So let's go to app.module. Here's the route for our home page. Here we're referencing home component. I want to change this and instead display products component. Now in a real world application, we probably want to have a separate home page. Perhaps that's where we display the featured product and other offers. But for now, it doesn't really matter. We don't want to keep clicking on a separate link to go to the products page. So that's why I want to display these products on the home page. Now let's test the application up to this point. So this is what we get. We get all these products in one column. Now I want to have 2 products per column. Let me show you how we do this with Bootstrap 4. So back on Bootstrap website, under the layout section, look at the grid, and here search for equal -with multi-row. This is the kind of layout we want to have. So 2 columns per row. Now with Bootstrap 4, we don't have to have multiple row elements. We have one div with the class row. Inside this, we have 2 columns. And then we have this new div with the class W100 to add a line break. So we can use ng4 to render these columns, and then use the index of the ng4. And after every 2 columns, we can render this div. So back in our template, first I'm going to add a div with the class row. Inside this div, we want a div with the class column, perhaps many of these. We're going to repeat this using ng4. And next to that, we want to have a div with the class W-100. Now we want to render this second div only after every 2 products. So you know that in ng4 directive, we can get the index of the current product. So semicolon, let I equal index. Now we're going to use this I here to render this div dynamically. So something like this, ng if. Now because this I is 0 based, I want to add 1 to it and then calculate the remainder of dividing this number by 2. If that is 0, then this is the right time to render this line break div. But this markup doesn't work. Angular is not going to compile this because we have defined I here and it's not meaningful here. So what I'm going to do is inside this div with the class row, I'm going to add an ng container. We could add a div, but I don't want to render extra unnecessary markup. Then I'm going to move this ng4 and put it here on our ng container. Now I'm going to move our cart element inside the column because we want to display a cart inside a column, right? Let's quickly reformat this. Okay, that's better. And finally, I'm going to move the column and the line break div inside our ng container because this is where we have our ng4. This is where we define p and I, so we can use these variables inside ng container. This is the end result. Let me reformat like this. So one more time. On the top, we have a div with the class row. Inside that, we have our ng container where we apply our ng4 directive. Inside that, we have a call, and inside the call, we have our cart. So with this markup, we iterate over our products observable and render multiple columns, and inside each column, we have a cart. Now, conditionally, we render this line break after every 2 products. Okay, now let's test this back in the browser. So we can see we have 2 columns per row. Beautiful. Next, I want to add the list of categories here on the left so the user can click on the category and see only the products in that category.